Nobody likes to be told what to do. It starts at around, I don't know, as soon as you're able to go, no! Starts very early. It goes into our teenage years when no matter what they tell us, we do the opposite because we're independent. We're adults now. We go out into the world and we find our way to finesse around this. We have different ways of finessing around this, about how to be told what to do. Some of us just smile and nod and then do what we want. And some of us fight back, and some of us do both, depending on who's giving the order. We all have our, is this true? Like, nobody likes to be told what to do. Unless you ask, and then you're feeling helpless and I need somebody to tell me what to do. But other than that, I don't want to be told what to do. And I don't want to be told how to do something I already know how to do. So then, with a sincere aspiration and a desire to train the mind, to achieve awakening, to be able to be of benefit to all sentient beings, we come to the monastery. And all they do is tell us what to do. I didn't come here to be told what to do. I came here for training. Why aren't you training? These people are just telling me what to do. And the more people we get, the bigger we get, the more people there are to tell you what to do. Furthermore, what this one tells you what to do is not what that one told you what to do. They are contradictory orders to tell you what to do. How am I supposed to deal with this? Who are these people? What is wrong with them? All they want is for me to do what they want me to do. I know how to do it. Why are they telling me how to do it? Yes? Familiar? And this is for everybody, right? I mean, we have rules about whether or not you wear shoes in the kitchen. It is very difficult for me to get on a pair of shoes to get in the kitchen. We have rules about how long the dishes are supposed to stay in the bleach. We have rules about who can drive a car and who can't. We have rules about when you can water and when you can't. We have rules about whether you can take, when you can take a shower and when you can't. We have rules about what order you should be when you eat in the lunch line. We no longer have rules about how you sit on the floor. This is disconcerting for some, comforting for others. I mean, so the rules change. 5 years ago, the rule was this. You try to implement the rule today, it's like, why are we doing that? That's not what we do. Well, we used to. I've been here too long now. And nobody's getting trained, right? Clearly, there is no training going on here because all we're doing is telling people what to do. Has anybody had this problem? Thank you, Gyatso. Thank you for your honesty, Gyatso. So today's BBC is actually in honor of this very wonderful and kind Anagarika who had some questions about this, right? I picked up on one of them. But you know, it is such an issue for all of us. I mean, the most horrible moment of my life at Sravasti Abbey happened because two people who tried to care about me wanted me to do something I did not want to do. And I made a mess. I made a lot of terrible karma, and I still pay for it, I think, a little bit. The worst one. The worst one, the time I had already been to the doctor, was following my doctor's orders, but my teacher had a different idea about what I should do. As did the nurse. Yes, it was ugly, and I was ugly. It was nasty for a long time. So I can relate. And if it's any comfort, there is a psychological term for this behavior. It's called psychological reactance. It is a knee-jerk reaction, negative reaction to being told what to do. Psychologically, reactance occurs when a person feels that someone or something is taking away their choices or limiting the range of their alternatives. Right? Does that sound familiar, like something we've all done? They say psychologically almost everyone has this negative mental reflex, yes or no. Yes. Geshe-la is even nodding his head. Okay, good, I'm glad. It's reassuring. It kicks in whenever we sense that our autonomy is being threatened. And here's a psychologist quote. When we feel a powerful surge of resistance, it's usually us trying to protect our ego because we don't want to look vulnerable. Now, that's an interesting thing to think about. It's not just stubbornness, it's not just pride. There is a fair amount of that in there. It's not just, a huge demonstration of self-grasping, because it is that, and self-centered thought, it is that. But the protection it's trying to do is we don't want to look vulnerable. That's psychology, right? I don't want to be vulnerable to the situation. Venerable doesn't quite buy this, but I think it's important to identify that we all have autonomy issues. That it's kind of part of the human psyche is we want to be free. People want to be free, independent, call their own shots. And also important to acknowledge that when we join together in community, we've actually voluntarily given up that fierce autonomy. So why we resist? And people have different levels of resistance. Some people are more easily conforming than others. Some people really fight it hard, and the whole psychology of why that happens for each individual person is really not the point. Even really not the point in our dealing with it. But it is to recognize it, and to recognize that it is not at all uncommon, and that in fact our training in community is a lot about that. A lot about how we learn to set aside the things that we cling to about ourselves, who we think we are, how we think we are, how we present ourselves in the world. And to look around and see that there's a whole other village, a whole other community around us that also has needs. And how do we interact with our own need for autonomy in relationship to other people? How do we do that? One of the things that Gyatso was twigging to was a BBC that I gave last year. This is how this came up, on being special. And the part of that thing about being special is that we've all, it's just part of being human in this samsaric world with the way our minds and afflictions run. We've all got tricks. We've all got shticks of how we move in the world, who we think we are, how people should respond to us. And this trick works. This is my personality, this trick works. This is your personality, your trick works. But when we come here, the tricks don't work anymore. So the first question is, what's wrong with them? Why do they hate me? Why do they hate me? Why don't they like me? Why don't they get me? And we don't really recognize that it's just because our shtick isn't working. Because we're seeing each other actually at a different level. We're seeing something else. And it's true that we may not, have the same interest in butterflies or, I don't know, writing code or whatever, that we may not find anyone that shares that interest. But our deeper interest, our spiritual interest, and our aspiration to transform our minds, that is what we have in common. And it takes a while, I think, to come to a resting place with accepting, recognizing that that's where we fit. That's how we belong. And so this thing about just working with this, I don't want to go into it too deeply, but I want to recognize that it's a common thing. And that what the analysis we need to do is, first of all, how is my reaction to being told what to do actually protecting me? How is it protecting me? Is it protecting me? And then one of our nuns adopted as a slogan that has been one of the most precious things to go by is to learn to practice, there are no enemies here. I don't know how many years you said it, you may still have to say it. There are no enemies here. It's a good one to practice. Because if we're all defended and we're all trying to make our way in the world with our certain way, if people don't respond to the way that we are trying to manipulate them to respond, they're going to come up to us like enemies. That's the way it's going to look. So why are they not enemies? That's for us to analyze. How do we look at the kindness around us every day? How do we examine what people are doing? What's their motivation? How's their practice growing? How do we start to look at the good qualities in the people around us? And in that way, our trust starts to grow. They're not telling me what to do because they're trying to manipulate me. They're not really telling me what to do because they're trying to power over me, usually. Sometimes we are, because people who are telling you what to do are also working with their afflictions. And so over time, we also begin to learn to hold each other's, what does Thich Nhat Hanh calls it? Unskillfulness. To hold each other's unskillfulness as unskillfulness and not as ill will. To recognize that even in the moments when the people who are trying to tell us what to do in a way that's not so appropriate are doing so because they at that moment too are overwhelmed by their afflictions. And I know how that feels. So we hold the space for each other in that way. Then, of course, Venerable also has this great question of what did I come here for anyway? It's voluntary. It's totally voluntary. What is it that I want from this particular situation? What is it that I want from the community? And what can I give to the community? Because there is a corollary to I don't want to be told what to do. And that is when telling someone what to do or asking someone what to do or even suggesting someone what to do and then they don't do it, nobody likes that either. So it's not like people pleasing to follow the directions or follow the guidelines, but it is like developing trust. And this takes time. This takes time. I just want to say that flat out. Develop trust that these guidelines are made intentionally, usually, always with the intention to be of benefit and to help train the minds of the people who are here. So sometimes there's safety guidelines that seem to make no sense whatsoever. I've been using a chainsaw my whole life. Why do I have to follow your guidelines to take this tree down? Or maybe they're just like, care in our relationships with our lay guests. I've been talking to people all my life. Why are you telling me what I can't say and can say in public? I'm happy to share everything. So maybe there's some feedback about what's good to say and what's not so helpful to share with others. Things that I remember distinctly when I was in Taiwan, training in the Bhikshuni ordination, and my job was to sweep the porch, and I was sweeping the porch like I've been sweeping since I was probably 3 years old, and the nun came along, couldn't speak English to me, like grabbed me, shook me, there's nothing nice about that, took the broom out of my hands and showed me a different way. Fortunately, I trained at the Abbey for a few years, so I didn't slug her, but but the impulse, I must say the impulse did arise, but okay, here I am for training. I am here for training. While I am here, I will sweep the way she wants me to sweep. I don't think it's any more effective, in fact, possibly less, but that is opinion, that is mine, and does not need to be voiced. Good thing we didn't speak Chinese. So the thing I want to get to is, to think then about why are the monastery rules here? Why are the regulations here? Do I really have to keep the spoon in that bleach for a minute? Yes. Why? Because it's the only barrier between us and every disease that comes up the hill, right? So there are reasons behind many of these things. And the more we use our experience or our reaction in the community, it's like the community is our mirror and the community is our support. So it's showing us not what's wrong with us. That's a place that's easy to go to. It's not like the mirror of the community is showing me what's wrong with me and I have to get better or fix it in order to fit in here. The mirror of the community is showing me, oh, this is what's going on in my mind. That's what I need to look at. This is my mind, my reaction, Why is this happening? Not psychologically, but why is this happening in terms of what affliction is arising? What's the affliction that's dominant in my mind when I react to things? What are the antidotes? How have I learned that? Have I done the meditations that are the antidotes to this affliction, or have I just got the list on my puja table? Do I, in fact, even have the list on my puja table? It gives us a space to use the teachings as they come, as the mirror and the reflection for how we practice with our mind. And then I always go to Anuruddha as my model. I do not live up to this at all, but I have a deep aspiration to be able to live in community in the way that Anuruddha replied to the Buddha. When the Buddha was traveling and he found a group of monks who were living so happily and beautifully together, in harmony and mutual appreciation, with an agreeability like milk and water mixed, regarding each other with eyes of love. It's a beautiful long story. I won't tell the whole story. But Anuruddha's replies was, I always consider what a blessing it is, what a real blessing that I am living with such companions in the spiritual life. I think, speak, and act with love towards them, both in public and in private. That's his internal practice. I speak, act with love towards them, both in public and in private. I always consider that I should put aside my own wishes and acquiesce to what they want, and then I do that. That's a tall order. And maybe in every situation it's not the right solution. But to think in terms of being told what to do, or being told how to do something, to check, who is it that doesn't want to do it that way? Is it because I actually have the experience that knows I've tried it this way before and it won't work? Or is it because it's just different from my way? Or is it just because you told me to do it that way? Why is that? So to aspire to set aside my own wishes and do what they want, then that's what I do. I think it's a beautiful aspiration. So it takes a lot of work to maintain a sense of harmony in community. And I think it takes a lot of work really to come up against this resistance inside ourselves to want to give up the specialness of who we are, or give up the integrity of our own point of view, or even acknowledge that my experience, I may have a lot of experience, but someone else might too in the same field. What is the cost? What's the cost of hanging on to it? And what's the cost if I simply do as they ask me to do? So this is not about doing. This is about thinking. This is about analyzing and thinking inside ourselves. So it's from my own experience in community, not mastered in any way, shape, or form, but I think improved. I think. I'm not seeing any nodding heads, but I'm not looking for approval. I'm not looking for approval anymore. I know it's improved. I know it's improved. And the less I look for approval, the better off we are.
Don't be surprised when the rules change. Yeah, it happens, and sometimes they change and nobody tells you, and you're doing it the old way or thinking the old way until somebody comes and tells you what to do, and you say, I am doing it what you told me to do, and they say, no, you aren't. It's what you're supposed to do is something different now. So this happens quite a lot too. I even read things, my email, and I go, what are they saying? This doesn't make any sense. So I'm in the middle of it too.
Yes.
And then I go stomping off and like, you people, don't you have brains that think like mine?
Dot, dot, dot.